The girl took off her baggy leather shoes, took off her heavy coat, and ran happily towards the top of the mountain. "Hello, grandfather." This was the first time she met her grandfather. It was the exact opposite of what she had expected. Her grandfather's attitude was very cold. When he found out that his granddaughter was going to stay here, he was even more angry. "What are you doing?" However, her aunt didn't take Heidi away. After a few simple words, she threw him here. Heidi had no choice but to beg grandfather with her head. But her grandfather's attitude was very firm, urging Heidi to hurry up and catch up with her. "But she doesn't want to marry me." This kind of answer made her grandfather feel confused for a long time. She turned around and went back to her room and locked the door. No matter how Heidi shouted, she didn't do anything. She thought Heidi would leave like this, but she lost her parents when she was young. Now she was abandoned by her aunt again. The only relative left was this grumpy old man. Where else can she go except here? At this time, a foreign scream was heard from the room next door. Heidi didn't lock the door and went in with her luggage. In fact, Heidi didn't know that her grandfather had been watching her behind the window. She didn't look so cold and heartless. She was just lonely for a lifetime. She couldn't let others integrate into her world for a while. The sky was dark at night. Heidi, who was afraid of everything, could only stay in her mother's arms. The next morning, her grandfather walked into the sheepfold without notice. Her grandfather still ignored her. But the next second, her grandfather specially gave her a spoonful of milk. Heidi was very happy. She thought her grandfather had agreed to stay, but she didn't think about it. Then her grandfather told her to send her to the shaman. The shaman checked her body first. Heidi is very healthy and should be easy to live. But her grandfather insisted on sending her out. But the shaman had to go far away for a while. She could only come back in 3 days. During this time, Heidi could only live with her grandfather. When she came back home, Heidi asked her grandfather, "Do you still need to live in the shed tonight?" Her grandfather replied, "I can live wherever I want." Heidi looked at the sheepfold behind her. Then she rushed into the room excitedly. But soon the smile on her face disappeared. In the narrow room, except for an old table, there was only a simple bed. She climbed up the stairs to the attic. She found that there was nothing but dry grass here. Her grandfather didn't refuse her to roll in the haystack excitedly. It was dinner time. Heidi told her grandfather that she didn't want to go to someone else's house. Her grandfather listened to her and didn't say anything. This made Heidi a little disappointed. The next day, Heidi was woken up by the bell. She looked out the window. It was the shepherd Peter passing by with a flock of sheep. This is something Heidi has never seen before. She drank the milk prepared by her grandfather in a hurry. Then she simply washed her face. After everything was done, she couldn't wait to let the sheep. She also wanted to put the sheep on the mountain like Peter. Her grandfather didn't refuse her. When she left, she also prepared some dry food for her. But in the next second, these foods were targeted by Peter. While Heidi was playing with the sheep, Peter bit his mouth on his cheese and sausage. When Heidi found out that Peter had quibbled that the sheep were stolen, Heidi naturally didn't believe his nonsense. The sheep on the other side of the rock were together. Peter hit the sheep hard with a whip. Even after the two sheep were separated, Heidi was still chasing after them. Heidi felt sorry for Peter and asked him to stop. Then she told him that if he didn't hit the sheep in the future, she would share half of the food she brought. Peter agreed immediately. After filling his stomach, Heidi was taught how to whistle, drink, and spit out firecrackers. She also took him to roll on the dense grass. The whole day was full of joy. But when she was about to go back, Peter's expression suddenly became serious. He wanted Heidi to promise not to tell his grandfather about eating things, because the villagers all said that his grandfather had killed someone. At this moment, Heidi's fantasy was broken. At dinner, Heidi hid in the corner and shook his legs non-stop. After eating, he took the initiative to sleep in the tent. His grandfather realized that Peter must have said something. Don't listen to bad things. You have to decide for yourself whether you want to be sad or cry in your own eyes. Although he didn't spend much time with his grandfather, he could feel that his grandfather was very good to him. He gave his grandfather a big hug at random. At this moment, the serious old man was a little confused. The next day, Peter brought Heidi to the lake on the top of the mountain. The two of them drew strange makeup on their faces with blueberries. Peter told Heidi that he would take her to see the snowflakes tomorrow. But Heidi couldn't be happy. Because 3 days had passed, his grandfather was going to send her away. Peter left angrily. In fact, Peter was very angry. But when Heidi returned home, he found a new chair by the table. Heidi was a little surprised and turned to his grandfather. Did he prepare this chair for himself? His grandfather didn't deny it. Heidi was confused because he was going to leave tomorrow. But his grandfather asked him what to do when he left. Heidi realized that his grandfather seemed to accept his existence. He ran over to hug his grandfather. And his grandfather didn't seem to be as cold as he was at first. He hugged Heidi tightly into his arms. Then Heidi rushed out of the door. He wanted to tell this good news to his friend Peter. After his granddaughter left, a serious smile appeared on his serious face. In the spring and autumn, the mountains were also covered with gold. And this was also the time when the children started school. Peter was reluctant to tell Heidi that he was going to school and would come back in the spring of the next year. Heidi was a little sad that she was destined to be alone in the winter without a partner. She asked her grandfather if she could go to school. His answer was no. In the snowy winter, Heidi, who lived on the top of the mountain, was too dangerous to go to school. When the snow covered the whole hill, Heidi could only sit alone in front of the window. Every day, there were no toys in the house. His grandfather carved a bear for him, but Heidi still had no smile on his face. His grandfather knew that Heidi wanted to play with him, so he took out the snow that had been frozen for a long time and took Heidi all the way to Peter's house at the foot of the mountain. Before leaving, his grandfather told him to have fun. Peter's living environment was worse than his own. At dinner time, his mother distributed dry food to everyone. But Heidi had nothing in his grandmother's hand. Heidi was a little reluctant, so he gave his piece to his grandmother. But his grandmother said that she was getting old and her teeth were about to fall off. She couldn't eat this dry food anymore. Looking at his grandmother, Heidi felt very uncomfortable. When his grandfather came to pick him up, he told his grandfather about Peter's grandmother. Then he lied on his grandfather's shoulder and said quietly, "Ice and snow melt and winter comes." Heidi couldn't wait for his playmate, but he waited for a woman in short sleeves. That was a cruel abandonment of his aunt. He found his grandfather and said that he had found a good family for Heidi. There, Heidi will not only improve his quality of life but also receive better education. However, after getting along for so long, Heidi and his grandfather had already developed feelings for each other. Naturally, he did not agree with his aunt to take him away. But his aunt did not give up. She secretly went to the mountain to find Heidi and lied to him that his grandfather had asked her to leave. Heidi, who was sensible, did not want to violate his grandfather's wishes. He could only let his aunt take him away. He looked back all the way and looked forward to the familiar figure. On the other hand, his grandfather also realized that the situation was a bit unusual. He hurriedly ran down the mountain, but it was still a step late. The villagers laughed at him. "You're late again when everyone's gone, aren't you?" Tears filled his eyes in an instant. He stood at the entrance of the village for a long time and was unwilling to return to the mountain. Maybe for Heidi, finding a rich family is also a good choice. But the reality is often cruel. The rich family that his aunt found was not to adopt a child, but to find a playmate for her daughter. When he woke up, it was the next morning. All he could see were the mysterious ceiling and the cold room. He climbed onto the windowsill and wanted to see the direction of his grandfather. But the windows here were sealed. The servants carefully cleaned the windows for him. Then, they put on a new princess dress for him. When it was breakfast time, Heidi forgot the rules here again, and Carola would patiently guide him how to do it. Next, Heidi went to class with Carola. But Heidi had never been educated. He didn't even know the basic letters. This made the private teacher very angry. Carola, who was next to him, would smile and help Heidi solve the problem. So the teacher had to teach him from the beginning. That day, Heidi asked Carola why all the windows were locked. Carola didn't answer, but took him to a dark room. This is his mother's bedroom. Since he died, the room has been locked. The two women in the picture are his mother and him. Heidi was a little curious about why Carola was standing. It turned out that Carola was not disabled. When his mother passed away, Carola had a heart disease. He lost his ability to move overnight. His father was afraid of losing his daughter again, so he locked all the windows. He kept Carola trapped in this castle forever. Heidi didn't know how to comfort him. He could only gently touch his arm with his little hand. It was lunchtime. Heidi, who couldn't sleep, secretly found the servant. He asked him to open the window for himself. The servant was very kind. Not only did he open the window for him, but also gently moved a chair for him. But the world outside the window was completely different from what he imagined. A building blocked his sight. He couldn't see Mount Alps where his grandfather was. The servant told him that if he wanted to see the mountain, he could only try it at the top of the tallest tower in the town. Thank you. Goodbye. After 2 hours of lunch break, he rushed out with Carola. Carola had never left the castle. She was curious about everything outside. The two of them also wasted some time. Because of the wheelchair, Carola could only wait at the door of the tower. He told Heidi not to worry about him and hurry up. Heidi ran to the bottom of the tower. The scenery here made him forget everything. All he could see were red bricks and tiles. There was not even a shadow of a mountain. That's when he realized how far away he was from his grandfather. At the same time, the passing woman was showing her cat to Carola. The three cute little heads were deeply liked by Carola. She didn't hesitate at all and bought them all. When they returned to the castle, she happened to be hit by the housekeeper. She just wanted to blame Heidi for going out without permission. She sneezed nonstop in the next second. The housekeeper was allergic to cat fur. This also made her look strange in front of everyone. As a result, Heidi was punished. The housekeeper not only didn't let her eat dinner, but also made her reflect on her actions. Heidi was very sad. This reminded her of her grandfather in the mountains. So she packed her luggage and changed her clothes. After giving Carola a hug, she left here without looking back. The housekeeper hurried up and stopped her. Heidi said that his aunt told him that he could leave at any time. But the housekeeper told him that his aunt had lied to him. He had already sold you here. Only, the owner here agreed to let you leave. The bread in the bag scattered all over the floor. Turned out that Heidi had secretly hidden the bread that he wanted every time. He was going to bring it back to his grandmother. And this scene happened to be seen by Carola. He thought Heidi didn't want to stay here from the beginning. He was so sad that he cried and went back to his room. Until the next morning, Heidi still didn't see Carola's shadow. This year, Leyua's star level is also slowly falling. When Heidi went to pick wild fruits, a butterfly fell on Carola's foot. He reached out to catch it, but it alarmed the butterfly. He caught up with it subconsciously. In the next second, he stood up like a miracle. Peter, who was far away, also rushed over to help. With the cooperation of the three, Carola finally took the first step. A few days later, Carola's father came here. He fell to his head on the mountain road. He loudly complained to his grandmother how he could let his granddaughter come to such a place. But in the next second, Carola, who was walking on the mountain, walked out from one side. The father and daughter got together and left. At the same time, her grandmother also prepared a gift for Heidi. It was a storybook full of blank pages. Her grandmother hoped that Heidi could write a story in it. But Heidi's expression suddenly became sad. It turned out that when he was at school at the foot of the mountain, Everyone laughed at his dream of writing a story. Her grandmother told him that it was not his fault. It was because of what they had seen that he had never left this mountain. If something makes you happy in life, then you just have to do it, no matter what people say. Okay. After saying goodbye to Carola's family, Heidi returned to an ordinary and free life. But this ordinary life showed a bright color. That is, in the gap between the sun and the moon, Heidi began to try to write his own story. Gradually, his story filled the entire notebook. And this story that warms people's hearts may be part of the notebook. The video ends here. Life is short. Don't let the world's complicated occupy the only pure land at the bottom of your heart.